Hi guys, how are you? I just wanted to get more into the word again, and just kind of share with you what's on my heart some more because the Lord is speaking to me and He's speaking through me, and it's just like so much that I have to talk about. Where it's like I'm extremely overwhelmed. Like I'm constantly like trying to write like everything that he's telling me, and I'm like writing and just experiencing. On top of that, I'm just like I'm coming out of like trauma and just different things. So I'm using this platform, the platform God gave me to speak and preach about his word, where in the beginning it was like about me, but then God used that situation to like I mean, like in the beginning, I was making things about me where I was not as strong in God as I am now. But God used the situations that He put me in to build a relationship with Him and to make me stronger. So when God puts you in certain situations, know that it is to strengthen you, and it is to pull you closer to Him. For instance, like God has different branches of where He wants His pastors, or what he wants his pastors to focus on, or his ministers, because we're all ministers of God, but we all minister in different ways, and a lot of people may not even know that they're ministers of God, or God is calling them to be in the ministry, and they may minister without actually knowing that they're ministering, or however you say it, excuse me. But what I would like to say is that, okay, so I know for a fact that when God put me on the streets to be homeless, it was because he knew he was going to bless me with a lump sum amount of money, or like a lot of wealth and a lot of things, and he specifically wanted me to know what to do with that money. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's one thing, God will bless you with money, and also the enemy will bless you with money. And the thing is, the enemy blesses you with stuff before your time, before you are ready to receive it. And when you receive something before your time, it will destroy you. It will mess you up because you're not ready to receive it. And so a lot of times I prayed for wealth and I prayed for different things, but I never received it right away because I wasn't ready. And now I see that I wasn't mentally prepared for it. Like, you have to know, there are lessons like you have to learn in life. Like, you got to learn how to save. Like, growing up, I didn't even know how to save. I didn't even know how to be a woman. Like, these are not things that were taught to me. So there are people that these things were not taught to them. So a lot of times, like, I was living in my family's household with my sisters and my brothers, and even if they knew what to do with their money, they didn't have time to sit me down and be like, hey, this is what you should do. Hey, or they would tell me, like, when I got my first job at the age of 15, they'll be like, okay, you're gonna start paying a portion of the rent and things like that. And I was like, oh my God, like, I cannot pay rent. I'm only 15 years old. Like, I barely can buy clothes for me to go to school. I work so hard. And so for me, I felt like ugh, this makes me feel like a slave. I'm not doing this. You know what I mean? Because I had people to actually do it for me. So I felt like if I don't have this job, I don't have to work, because it was hard for me to work, to go to school, and to work and pay bills, and none of that money go to me at all. Like, as a 15-year-old, I felt like I needed to be rewarded in some way. On top of that, my past life was very abusive. My past life was very painful, and I wasn't being treated that well in the household that I was in, not by my sisters, but specifically by the woman that gave birth to me, who is my mother, but I don't call her my mother. I don't like to call her my mother. But these are things that these were issues that God needed me to deal with him, not alone, but with him, that we together needed to deal with before he could bless me with the things that he's blessed me with, or that he's going to bless me with in the future, in the near future, or the far future, the future period. So Understand that God wants to prepare you before he is a merciful God. He knows, if he is a smart God as well. If he knows if he wants something to be successful, he's going to take action and take the steps that are necessary for that, for those actions, for those things to come to pass. So it's like, in order for anything to be successful, there has to be some sort of order, some sort of practice, some sort of, you know what I mean, some sort of plan. Like, you can't just do things without planning things first, and sometimes you're going to get thrown out there without a plan. But that's when you put your brain is like, the minute you're thrown out into a situation without a plan, that's when your brain automatically starts to figure things out. That's how you learn about your brain. God is testing your brain to see what you're going to do, or what, when you're put in a certain situation. Are you going to panic? Are you going to do this? So when you're thrown in a situation where you don't have a roof over your head, somebody says, oh, you got to go right now, know that God is using that to show you what you need to do. The next time God blesses you with a place to stay, you need to know what you need to do. You need to have lessons. He's going to put you in that situation so you experience it and learn the lesson from it. Things that you didn't do, perhaps you were not helping out, or perhaps you were not cleaning up, or even some people get thrown out for no reason, period, just for looking cute, and that's a problem. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's all sorts of different reasons why people may get thrown out, end up on the streets, or lose their job, or whatever could happen. But the thing is, in life, we spend a lot of our time trying to heal from our past, drinking and smoking and just certain things. And I'm not judging anybody because of that, but what I'm saying is, we end up spending a lot of our time trying to recover from our past pains, that we don't realize that we're that it's the some substances that we may use, or where we're spending that time. When we start spending that time in something that is not building us, but tearing us down in the long run. It may be helping us in the moment, but in the long run, if it's not helping you, it's going to end up breaking you in the end. So once we cut off those habits, or certain things that are not helping us for the future, or they're not building us up for the future, setting us up for success in the future, then we're going to need to literally, like, cut those things off. So for me, it was like I started out, I left my sister's house. I was living with my sister and my sisters. And when I had my daughter for the very first time, I realized that I needed to start being responsible. Like, when I got pregnant for the very first time, and I'll get into that story a little more later when I got pregnant, but when I got pregnant for the very first time, and the only time, I literally, I asked God to give me a child, but I did not know that God was going to answer my prayer. Like, literally, God will answer. If it is according to his will, God will answer your prayer. And so you need to be ready for God to answer. The minute you start praying for something, start preparing yourself for God to answer your prayers, for that answered prayer. So he literally surprised me, and I was like, wow, God can literally hear me. Like, I specifically asked God to give me a daughter to get me pregnant at the age of 16, and have my daughter, to get me pregnant at the age of 17, and have my daughter at the age of 18, have my daughter by 18. I specifically wanted it in that order because I did not want to be a older mother, because I was like, when you get older, you run out of energy. You're not a fun person. You're cranky. So I wanted to have fun and be friends with my child. So that's why I asked God for a daughter, and I wanted to do her hair, have a friend, somebody to talk to. And so, like literally, I did not know what I was asking for. Like, I'm glad I had my daughter and everything, but I did not ask God for the steps, like the things that I needed. Like, asking God for a child, but you also have to remember to ask God to give you the things that you need to provide for that child. I did not say, God, give me this, let me have the stuff that I need to provide for my child. Let me have the husband, or let me have the spouse, or whatever, the baby's father, or whatever in my life. Like, I did not ask for any of those things because I did not know I needed any of those things. I was simply allured by the woman that I was babysitting for, and I told God, wow, I thought she was just so beautiful, and how she was a single mother, and I specifically just was like, God, I want this, I want this, I want to be a single mother with a child. Like, I did not know how hard it was. I was only 15 years old, asking God for a daughter, not knowing how it was going to turn out. But the biggest thing was that God literally answered my prayer. And when God answered my prayer, I was in complete shock. When I went to that doctor, and an ex-friend of mine, an old friend of mine, not ex, but old friend of mine, took me to the doctor, and they said, you're pregnant. And I was literally like in shock. I was like, what? I had forgotten about that prayer. Like, there are prayers that you have even forgotten that you ask God for, that God is preparing to answer you, to answer them to you. Like, he's been like, he put them aside, like, you put those prayers aside, but God put the answer aside to, waiting to give it to you for the right time for you to receive that prayer, for that prayer to be answered. So I was literally like, he had put that prayer aside, and literally the same exact time that I asked him to answer that prayer, he literally answered my prayer. And guess what? I was like so in shock. Why? Because I was not prepared. I didn't have a job. I had quit my first job, not my first job, but my job at, I was working at Chase Bank, and I was 15 years old, and I had quit that job because, my birth mother was asking me for rent, and I was still trying to figure out how I'm going to study. I still didn't have like good study habits. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to, I was just all over the place. Like, I was beaten a lot as a child, even at home, to do right. Like, it's not good to, it's like, I've learned the hard way that it is not good to hit on your kids, to expect them to learn. Like, okay, a pet is good, but when you literally hitting them, I really think that does damage to the brain. Like, I used to spank my daughter, and there was times where I did pull out the belt because I felt like, oh my God, I panicked. Like, I was like, oh my God, a car is gonna hit you if you don't stay calm. Like, I panicked. And I was like, I'm going to get my belt out and, spank you, because if you don't listen. So it's like, if you're not mentally prepared, you're going to be in shock. You know what I mean? You don't understand like what's happening. It all hits you like, oh my God, what is happening here? Like you get scared. Like, you love the child so much that you get scared for them. You know what I mean? And I think that's what, in my household, that's what happened in my household, why I was being hit a lot. There were times where I was being hit even when I wasn't doing something wrong, but some people have, their brain is functioning in a different time, in a different way, and so they're used to doing something, hitting on someone for so long that it's became a habit, that it becomes a reflex. We've all experienced, I've done a reflex before, but it's not because I've done it so long, but it was just because, like, there's a time where you just like panic, like I said. So I completely forgive, my mother for whatever she did, because forgiveness is key. I don't hold a grudge. I'm just like understanding and talking to God about, just explaining what happened to me and what could happen to anyone if they're not prepared, if they don't talk about their problems, if they don't write their problems down. God wants you to understand why you are in the situation that you're in. It's not that he wants to punish you, but it's because he wants to prepare you. And once you continue to understand that God is trying to prepare you and train you and mold you, that's when you know, and you won't be so upset, with him. You can understand. And sometimes you do get upset in that moment because you can't help what you feel. You're human. You don't want to be mad, but these are things that you pray about. These are things that you write down. Lord, I want to be accepting of what I'm going through. Like, accept that you're going through it and be strong and hold on to that, because sometimes you have to go through that process. And sometimes you can't just pray it away. There's times where you will pray, and you pray, but it will be there. But it's not that God wants it to happen to stay there, but it's because you're going through a trial, a process, and you got to go through that process, and you got to experience that in order to know what not to do and to know what it feels like, you know. And so for me, it was like I didn't know how to. I automatically, the minute I found out I was pregnant, I was like, I need an abortion. Of course I didn't want an abortion, but that was the first thing I went to, is abortion. Kill the child. Not kill the child, of course not, but the embryo, like, destroy it. Like, God had already knew that I would. God is incredible. He already knew that I would think this way because he knew I wasn't prepared. But God set things in place where that action did not take place, where she would not get aborted, because he has a plan for her, because he is her creator, because she's not a mistake. So everything that I did like God said, like, and I think I spoke about this in one of my old videos, but I didn't explain it correctly because I didn't have much time. But it's like God made things where God made it where it was too late for me to have an abortion. It was too late for me to have an abortion, so I couldn't have an abortion. It was simply 5 months too late, almost 5 months, and they were like, you can't have an abortion. That's how great God is. So it was like just amazing. But once I had my daughter, I had a great experience with my daughter, and everything was good. And I'll talk to you guys more about that later, because I can go on and on, but I don't really have much time on my phone, like literally running out of space. So I'm like trying to work with the space that I have to present this message to you guys. But like I said, if God has you in like a situation like you're on the street, you are learning. God is showing you things that when God blesses you, the homeless people think they're cursed. You're not cursed. You are blessed. But you need to understand why you're there and who has you there and who is your creator. And that when you see what people are doing for you, when you don't have, you will remember that and you will give back. When you become rich, you will remember what they did for you and what God did for you and how God showed up for you. So you will not waste that money on the money that God gives you when you become wealthy and you become better on expensive, luxurious things that are not necessary for you to survive. Like, it's nice to look good, but we got to learn how to manage our money so that we can continue. Like, we got to ask God to teach us how to be happy with just the little that we do have. Not that God doesn't want us to have a lot, but when we learn how to manage things and we learn we don't need the most expensive things, we don't need the best of the best all the time. Sometimes just what we have is what we need. So I'll speak more on this topic in another video, guys, and we're going to be doing it that way. But please subscribe, and thank you so much for listening. God bless.